Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Smason, and welcome once again to NOLA Theater Talk. This is part of our outreach as part of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which is part of our outreach as well. For those of you who are not members of that particular group, you can watch everything on that Facebook page for our theatercriticism.com website. And also, of course, my own YouTube channel. We hope that you can check that out either by looking me up or looking up the old account that I had at Music Lovers 169. Tonight we have a very special guest, and I'm going to bring in somebody who has been I would say, creative genius, if you will. I hate to call him a genius because I don't want to give him too high an opinion of himself, but an author and now a playwright who has actually taken on the role of playwright for, I think, the first time. We'll find out more about that. But it's something that he's come up called Simpson's Pride. And we're going to have the world premiere of a live reading of Simpson's Pride. We'll talk more about who the actors are that are involved with it a little bit later on. But first off, let's bring out the actual author, if you will, and the playwright, Stephen Maitland-Lewis. Welcome to NOLA Theater Talk, Stephen. And again, I want to thank you first off for coming up with the idea of having Simpson's Pride, and we'll talk a little bit about who Simpson was, etc. But you are living, if I'm not mistaken, in Beverly Hills, correct? That's where you live here, and you partially live in New Orleans too. We have a condo, right?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity of my play reading in New Orleans. Thrilled about that. My main residence is in California, but for the last 8-9 years, I've had a home in the French Quarter.
And we're glad to have you as part of this. One of the very interesting things about you, Stephen, is you've been an aficionado of jazz for a long time, and some people may remember seeing you on either Steppin' Out or perhaps in some other guise as a jazz aficionado. And one of the things that has sort of been a claim to fame for you is, as a very young boy, you wrote a letter to Louis Armstrong. And not only did you write a letter, but he actually wrote you back. Isn't that correct?
That's absolutely so. It was a 4-page letter in his own handwriting, and it started a pen pal exchange that lasted until he died. And during the time we were corresponding, he came to England twice, and I met him and I had dinner with him and his wife Lucille on those occasions. And there was quite a collection of letters, birthday cards, Christmas cards, all through those years. They were very special. He was a great role model in many respects.
Well, I want to also, mention the fact that that this became sort of a cause in your mind, and I was so pleased that you sent it to me when you actually came up with the idea, and this is the actual script that you sent me, and of course you've made an electronic version of it, but Simpson's Pride, and we're going to talk about who Ernest Simpson was, but I think we probably need to back up a little bit. First off, your main work or works have been in the field of what, novels and things of that sort, right?
Absolutely. This is the first play that I am a published author of novels, historical fiction and thrillers.
So what was it about this particular person that said to you, I can't write this as a fictional work, I've got to write it as a play, and I've got to incorporate some fictional aspects to it, but that, license, etc. But what was it about this figure that said it really deserves to be more in a play format rather than in a format of a novel?
Well, I did write it first as a short story. And when I completed the short story, I then realized that there was potential, I thought, hope for a play. And I remember in Beverly Hills, there is a professional theater group, Theater 40, that a few years ago presented a play about the animosity between Mary McCartney and Lily Hellman. And it was basically around their appearances on the Dick Cavett show. And this was a play with 3 characters, and it sort of acted as an influence for me to rewrite the short story of Ernest and Wallace as a play.
Well, it's fascinating because as I said, one of the things that we wanted to do here at NOLA Theater Talk was first off to talk about theater for the New Orleans community. But when you came up with a work that was a world premiere, essentially, it had never been really seen the light of day. It had never been really realized. I said to you, okay, why don't we do this as a work to involve New Orleans theater people and get them involved in it as actors? And you seemed interested, but again, I didn't think you understood what the whole point of it was. As far as it being done virtually, that we don't have a theater that's really open where people can actually, as actors, walk on the stage and be blocked, et cetera. But it's still going to be done in a virtual setting, like we've seen so many things now, and we've gotten sort of, I guess, used to it. But one of the things about doing these things on the internet is that it's sort of a gray area for a lot of people because traditional television has been the domain of the SAG-AFTRA group, and the theater has been the domain of Actors Equity. And generally, there's very little gray area between the two. If something is going to be in the theater and going to be open for people to come in from the public and purchase tickets, et cetera, that's Actors Equity, and no problem. But once you actually film that or videotape it, whatever, and from various sites or whatever, you film it and you have different angles, et cetera, that are done, and you make it into a movie. Now it's a SAG-AFTRA project, and they have to be involved. And so, and they've actually pretty much stated categorically that SAG-AFTRA insists on having the rights to all of the electronic broadcasts that there are. What's done on the medium of the internet is sort of a gray area still. I don't know that anybody would really consider the live streams necessarily a threat to broadcast television. And I don't know whether or not SAG-AFTRA really thinks about it that way. But as of right now, we've been able to do plays, et cetera, while this pandemic's been going on. It is the only way that we can actually see works, of theater right now, unless you want to go into a socially distanced environment. And there's so few people that are actually doing that now. There were two theaters that were open at one point. There was a theater that opened, I think, in London for a one-night only performance that was done not too long ago. Occasionally, you'll see some announcements in New York where they're going to have actually a play or whatever done, but they're well in advance, and they generally are not anywhere near the numbers of people that were allowed to come in. So for us to be able to do this, this is the only way we can actually do this. So tell me, first off, let me go back and see if I can fill people in on what's going on here. We're going to be doing this work on Monday night, and the first thing I want to do is I want to do the setting. This is based on the story of this fellow here, Ernest Simpson, and we can sort of if you move a little bit over to your left, I think you can have a little bit more space there. No, the other way. I'm sorry. I guess it'd be towards your right. There's Ernest in the middle, and there you are, and I am. And Ernest was something of a character, was he not?
He was a character, and not necessarily likable. I think I've made him in the play more likable probably than he was. But
yeah.
He certainly made a mark.
Yes, he did. And the thing is that it wasn't like, he was born in the United States of an American mother and a British father, and he actually attended Harvard, so he was certainly bright in what we regard as a scholar, certainly able to carry his own in the classroom as a student. He emerged from Harvard and enlisted, I believe, in the Army. Was that correct? Was it the Canadian Army or was it the United States?
It was the British Army.
The British Army, and he actually was involved in battles on the field in World War I, right?
He emigrated from the United States, from New York to London, and he became more English than the English. He was devoted to all things English. He was the absolute personification of an Anglophile. He joined the Coldstream Guards, which was a very prestigious regiment. He became a British citizen, and he was involved in the First World War.
Yeah. So
His
when did he actually become a member of the Coldstream Guards, and when did he renounce his American citizenship? I thought that was like later after the war.
Well, the war, I think he joined the army in 1914 at the outbreak of the war. I don't believe he actually renounced his American citizenship.
Ah.
Possible. I mean, I'm a dual citizen myself of America, United States, and England. I can't say categorically that he renounced his American citizenship.
I seem to remember reading that, but I might be mistaken, and I'm not going to say categorically that he didn't or didn't. But I thought that he did. But
he might well have done.
If he, I thought he was just so involved in being a British citizen that he didn't want to look back at being an American, and he gave that up. But
I can't say.
In any event, he did become a British citizen, and he wanted to become not just a British citizen, but he wanted to become part of the upper class of the British citizens, the ruling class, as it were, right?
And he succeeded, not from the standpoint of the ruling class, but he penetrated it in all its social factors. The reason he went to England, apart from being in love with being in England, was to manage the London office of the family shipboat club. And he was, at one time, reasonably successful at that. But he penetrated high society. His wife became involved with.
Well, we're going to get to that because he was married 4 times, right?
He was married 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah, but the one that most people will know is his second wife. I'm going to show a picture of her in a little bit. But again, he utilized that marriage much to I would think the I don't know, horror, but maybe much to the chagrin of some people, that they would say, how in the world could he have permitted or even endorsed his wife to carry on, as it were. But we'll get to that in a second. Let me first off, let's set the scene a little bit. I'm going to take a little journalistic license, as you were, for myself as well, and I'm going to set us in the setting for where Simpson's Pride occurs is back in America, back around 1958, in a plush hotel room in New York, correct?
Correct.
And so we are going to magically appear in that hotel room now. Now we are ensconced in the back of us is this beautiful plush hotel room, circa 1958 in New York, and this is where the play is going to take place. So now, if I may, let's go ahead and meet the other cast of characters that we're dealing with. So Ernest Simpson, we know he became a British citizen. He was living in Britain, but was he already married to his second wife at that point? I think not. I think
they married in the 20s.
In the 20s. So for those of you who are wondering, I'm not quite sure who his first wife was, so maybe you can tell me who that was.
She was a New York lady. Her father was a distinguished lawyer in New York, and marriage didn't last particularly long.
So he was already a divorcee once when he married his second wife. By the way, because I've had some recent surgery, I'm having a Polar Natural Seltzer, calorie-free black cherry. Let's see if I can get that up there. There you go. That's what my drink is tonight. What are you having? I think you're having a little kiddish tonight for us on a Friday night. How appropriate. What variety of wine is that?
This is a Malbec. So
very nice, very nice. And so let's get on with it. This is Ernest Aldrich. Is that right?
Yeah.
Ernest Aldrich Simpson, the gentleman who married a second time, and the second time he married a lady named Bessie, her first name. She took on the name for her father. That's correct. As her middle name.
Wallace.
Or that was her maiden name that she used?
No, the family name.
Anyway, so everybody's going to recognize her once I put the picture up. Here it is. They know her as Wallace Simpson. She took on the last name of her husband and the last name of her husband, of her father, that is, and she became Wallace Simpson. Now, how did Wallace Simpson become famous? Those of you who know your history know that she carried on an affair and eventually married the future King of England, who was, of course, Edward VIII, and eventually brought about the demise of his rule. He had to abdicate in December of 1936 due to the fact that he wanted to marry the woman he loved, as he said in his powerful speech to England and the world. And again, one of the reasons that he was forced to abdicate was at that time it was not acceptable for a British monarch to be married to a woman who had been divorced, and I guess that was the main reason. But also, the fact that she wasn't considered maybe good enough for him. Is that perhaps the fact she was an American citizen and had not necessarily? And of course, we've gone through this again, haven't we not? In terms of recent history with Meghan Markle, but they accepted her with a lot more. I would say. Maybe it was just it was more allowed at that point. What do you think?
Well, Prince Harry was the sixth in line when he married Meghan Markle, fifth or sixth. That's a big difference between the man who was the King of England or Prince of Wales, who was the number one in England after his father, George V. So there was a big difference there altogether. And the times were different. It was the 30s.
Right. But the fact that she was divorced was the word. I mean, I guess part of it is the fact that if you're the King of England or the Queen of England, you're also the head of the church.
Absolutely.
And as the head of the church, you not only have to be above reproach. You can't tell people you can't have a divorce when you've had two of your own, or you're married to somebody who's had two of their own. Is that sort of the way?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, this was not just a matter of what we might say might be a social thing, but it was also a religious objection. So they didn't object to her not necessarily because she was a divorcee, but also because she was a taint on the church by her association with him. And
a combination of both.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate that they felt that way, but again, that was the 30s, as you said so eloquently. Again, I have a picture of, I think this is Ernest on his maybe third marriage, because it's definitely not Wallace Simpson.
Yes.
And so that would be around the same time as I can tell. And I did manage to do one of these pictures where I superimposed a small part of the Duke and Duchess of Windsor on the picture, so that I would sort of have them together, the two couples. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks, Stephen. Okay. He actually, because of his own designs on moving up in British society, actually encouraged his wife to carry on this affair.
I think he was absolutely powerless to do anything about it. The importance of the king, and the fact that she was extremely flattered by the king's attention to her.
Yeah.
Ernest was absolutely powerless. He could do nothing about it.
Well, he could have moved back to America, as one of the people in the play ends up saying. He could have taken his wife back. He could have stood his ground. In other words, is enough to give away something for your country, and to put your life on the line, so to speak, for your country. But do you have to put your wife on the line for your country?
Well, he did.
Yes, he did.
He did.
Yeah. So again, it's not something that many of us would understand, but it is a part of our history. Now, tell me why he thought. And again, I don't think a lot of people understand this, and I think it's better to come out of you than me. Why he thought that his allowing his wife to carry on this affair and eventually for them to be divorced, why he felt that was an important move and why he thought this had a positive effect on Britain and the world in the years that followed.
Well, firstly, I don't think he thought that at the time. I think that dawned on him as the years rolled on. Edward, when he was first the Prince of Wales and then became the king, was very pro-Nazi. And it was within the realm of possibility that Edward would have used his influence to prevent England entering into a possible war with Nazi Germany. England was not really ready for a war. It was only 20 odd years after the end of the First World War when England had suffered enormous fatalities. And the idea of fighting again was something that really the country was largely against. If it hadn't have been for Churchill and one or two others, King Edward VIII on the throne would very likely have done a deal with Nazi Germany. And a deal with Nazi Germany would have very likely ended a lot of Western civilization as we know. Germany would have probably invaded England, just as it had done with many other European countries. And the rest is history.
So you think essentially that just like the Soviets and Stalin signed a non-aggression pact with Hitler, that perhaps as king, Edward VIII would have signed a similar non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, and that would have allowed Hitler and his cronies to maybe come into England a little bit more easily and be welcomed with open arms, as it were, and that perhaps later on, as happened with Russia, that the Soviet Union, as it were, that the Nazis would have actually, when it was prudent and expedient for them, they would have turned on England the same way as they turned on Soviet Union.
I have no doubt that is the case. That's a very good summary.
So again, this is all speculative, but you believe you have you've read enough on the story to agree that that's the case.
Absolutely. I mean, there's enough evidence, published evidence, that Edward and Wallace were very pro-Nazi, and that she was also having an affair with von Ribbentrop, who was Hitler's foreign minister. There's no doubt they made a visit to Nazi Germany, and they were very close to the Nazi hierarchy. And by abdicating the throne, which Edward was forced to do, it made the likelihood of that sort of German-Russia deal impossible for Germany and England, because Churchill assumed power as Prime Minister, and he was very able to turn the country back on a different path with the support of King George VI.
It's hard for me to believe that Wallace Simpson, who was after all from Baltimore, and of course the United States, a citizen, that she would be so pro-Nazi.
Well, she was. What can I say? She was.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand to a certain extent. There was, I mean, the Windsor family, as it were, was actually not the Windsors. They changed their name at the onset of World War I, correct?
Correct.
And they were originally a German family name, right? That they changed the name to Windsor to.
Well, the fact of the matter is that, if Hitler was able to persuade the Germans to follow him, and he had a great following amongst the French. I mean, after the war, every French person said that they were in the resistance, but that wasn't true at all. And in Holland too, it's not surprising that Wallace Simpson who had developed an antipathy towards the British, began to feel uh, a soft spot for the Nazis. And I think she was a very, very powerful woman. I think she was certainly the boss in that marriage. And she convinced Edward. And Edward, actually, for all his academic deficiencies, was a fluent German speaker. His mother was German. And he developed a fascination with Hitler.
So we're talking about, are we talking about the Queen Mother?
We're talking the Queen Mary, who was
Queen
the
Mary.
George.
Okay, so that would have been his Queen Mother, but not Elizabeth's Queen Mother. Right, gotcha. Yeah. So interestingly enough, the story is playing out, and again on Monday we'll have the story of Simpson's Pride. Let me talk a little bit about some of the people who are going to be involved in this particular production. We have first off playing the role of Ernest Simpson, and for some people it's they may say it's cross casting or blind casting. I was very impressed with Donald Lewis as an actor when he took on some of the roles that he did in Le Petit's production of A Christmas Carol. And of course, it's a different kind of British accent that he had, I thought that he would carry off the role because he's old enough to be able to do that, and I thought he would actually carry on some of the I guess characteristics of what this Ernest Simpson cad as he was and rapscallion that he was. I thought he could carry off that well. So I asked Donald to take on that role, and of course to play the role of Wallace Simpson. I also asked a couple of ladies to take their chances of what they wanted to do, and it was strictly volunteers. Anybody who wanted to get in could. And we had two ladies who volunteered. One was Eris Walsh, and she's going to play on what I would say is a fictional person that you have of basically a person who gets very close to the character of Ernest Simpson, but you don't have anything to base that on. Cheryl Adams, right? That she is essentially a new love interest, if you will, and so she becomes very close to him, and she's the assistant hotel manager, and I don't think that's giving away anything more than you'll find out early on. And then we had in the role of Wallace, we had Tracy Elliott, who it turns out you happen to know her previously from connection that you all had down here in New Orleans. I assume that it was
in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles, okay, so in Los Angeles. So she's now living in New Orleans, and so that I guess the stars did what they're supposed to do, and now she's a part of the work that you have written. And we also have a University of New Orleans graduate student, Drew Stroud, who's also involved in the work. He's playing the role of a reporter, Brad Levy, and playing the part of sort of the hard-nosed news editor, Karen Ginsberg, is Catherine Talbot. And of course, Catherine has been in some of our other productions. She did a reading not long ago and was also involved with the Cherries Jubilee production we did. And we're always happy to welcome her back as a fine actor. And we hope that you'll be able to enjoy all of these people working in concert on Monday night. We've got several rehearsals still to go through with them, and we still want to make sure that it's up to snuff. But much of the heavy lifting's been done. We still have some questions about making sure that the internet is working properly, but that's all going to be done. As far as you're concerned, you and I both have had something. This week we both had some medical procedures. And I'm not going to say exactly what was with you or with me or whatever, but we both have had our challenges this week in being able to make this particular broadcast and be around. Not that anything was life-threatening, but again, I want to thank you for being here tonight with us, and I hope that you'll appreciate the fact that the pains we put ourselves through for doing these things is sometimes real physical pain rather than just mental anguish. We're doing our best to continue the theater scene here in New Orleans, and I really think this is going to be a great opportunity for people to learn more about this character, Ernest Simpson. I did want to mention the fact, if anybody wants to leave a comment or ask a question, very quickly, we're going to be turning to another topic in a little bit with another actor, Casey Groves, who'll be up shortly. But I wanted to mention, the fact that if you have a question or a comment, anything about this play or what we're doing, or anything perhaps related to what Stephen's already talked about, Ernest Simpson, and why he felt he was an entitled person, and why he felt that what he had done was worthy of consideration for history, and historians should have regarded him in a much more, I would say, respectful fashion than perhaps as just somebody who allowed his wife to carry on with a future would-be King of England, as it were. But you can certainly do so by going to StreamYard.com/Facebook, and that way, if you're a member of our Facebook group, NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, you can leave your comments up, and it'll actually have your name. And again, if you're not a member of the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, if you're on TheaterCriticism.com's Facebook page, or perhaps watching us on YouTube, then you can still leave the information that you want, and we'll hopefully get a chance to see it. If not, what happens is you end up seeing your comment listed as Facebook user or something along those lines, and sometimes people want us to know who it is that are leaving the comments, and sometimes makes actual sense to do so. So keep that in mind. Again, our guest this evening is Stephen Maitland-Lewis, an author and playwright. Tell me a little bit about the person we were actually planning on having tonight. He had another alternative meeting of some sort tonight, but you got some help in writing this work, right? With a fellow who lives out there with you, Angelo Parra. Would you tell me a little bit about him?
Certainly. Angelo is a professor of theatre at one of the state universities in New York State, and he's a friend of mine for many years. He's a great chap, and he wrote a play about Bessie Smith, who, as you know, was one of the early great blues singers. And Angelo's also written a book about playwriting, and he and I have known each other for some time, and I was having some issues with dialogue, and he was very helpful.
So never having actually done a play before, he kind of got you through the ins and outs of what to do, and sort of walk you through them?
Exactly. He was a mentor, and is a mentor.
What would you say is the major difference between writing a play and writing a novel? And I think you maybe mentioned the fact, something about describing a sunset. You don't have to go through all of that. You just say, here's a sunset in the play, right? But I mean, what besides that, what else did you find is either maybe freeing in some way, or perhaps more constraining in some way, that you have to do certain things, that the characters have to say something rather than just put the action down? I mean, how do you regard playwriting now?
Well, apart from the factor that you just mentioned, that you can just say a sunset or a sunrise, you don't have to go into long descriptions. If you write a novel and you submit it to a publisher, who then it goes through the editing process. Once the editing process is agreed upon, you're good to go. A play is somewhat different, I found, in that there are development readings, which changes are often proffered by the director or the actor, and the first draft of the play might well go as I'm told, unless it's a playwright understanding of like Arthur Miller, may go through 10 or 20 different revisions.
Yeah.
And I've been told that, for instance, with Tennessee Williams, he sometimes made revisions after a play had opened. So it's a longer process, and it's probably a more exciting process, because you get input from different people as you're going along.
I can only tell you that once a play has opened, nowadays, it's frozen. that
Well,
once it actually has an official opening, you're not allowed to tamper with it until you actually have either a revival or another iteration of it in some way that that allows you to do that. But that you can't revisit a finished work like that because it's published at
well,
that point.
Tennessee Williams got away with it.
Well, maybe that's why maybe that's why the rule is the way it is today. That
Oh,
once it's opened, it's published. And I don't know. All I can tell you is that the rules are today that once you open those doors officially, that's why they can have previews, and they can actually, even in previews, they don't change a whole lot. But occasionally, if something's not working in a preview, they can change something all the way up into the opening day. That opening night is the demarcation point, and once it's opening night, you are not able to make any further changes, and that's the end of your tampering with it. And if you didn't get it right that time, too bad. You can, like I said, I mean, a good example of a revision that was done to a work was Pippin. When Diane Paulus reimagined Pippin in 2012, she imagined it with characters on stage who were juggling and doing acrobats and things of that sort that had never been in the original play. And again, it didn't cut down on what the action was. It added to it, but it was a departure from what the original was. And anybody who was expecting it to be the same, was in for what I considered a treat. I thought the revival really upped the ante. I mean, they changed the leading player from Ben Vereen, a male, to a female, and they were all very good in what they did, but again, it was a departure, and I thought that Diane Paulus was very, very perceptive in the way that she did that. Recently, they just did a recent revision when they pared down Oklahoma, and they made it very, very small in terms of a lot of the orchestrations. I think there was maybe a series of 5 or 6 musicians that were actually on the center of the stage there who performed live, and they were sort of in a modified pit of sorts. It's very interesting. They actually had some scenes that were shot on video live and then broadcast to give a real feel to what was going on in the action. So there were things that were changed quite a bit. And I would think, it wasn't necessarily better in many ways. It was different, but it was for some people, a wonderful revelation. I will say that the real clever part, I think that everybody knows in Oklahoma, there's the ballet sequence, and the ballet's performed by 10 or 12 or 13 different people who are performing dance. And Agnes DeMille, of course, did it originally. Well, they took that Agnes DeMille ballet, and it was done by one person. One person. And she did the most incredible, outstanding job of taking all the different players and taking all of their characters and transforming them into her own translation of what was going on. And it was a very interesting and inspirational night of theater for me. But again, we will see what goes on with Simpsons Pride. I can only thank you again, Stephen, for being with us tonight, and for being the playwright. And I can say playwright, not author, because you actually did a finished play now, and we have to consider you if not a published playwright, certainly a playwright in good standing. And I think that the people who are involved with this, as I said, Donald Lewis, Eris Walsh, Tracy Elliott, Catherine Talbot, and Drew Stroud, that all of them are going to do an excellent job in trying to translate those characters and bring them to life and make your words on the page, appear live in people's homes. So we want everybody to tune in on Monday night for that. And again, I can't thank you enough for writing it and for sending it to me and for your trusting me enough to kind of, get it off the boards or on the boards, whatever you want to say, and get it produced and being able to bring people to it and hopefully we'll do justice to it. Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
You're more than welcome. And again, I'm going to wish you a good Shabbat and a nice weekend, and hopefully we'll we'll see you soon because I know you're going to be working with the rehearsal tomorrow, and we'll hopefully see you on Monday night as well. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Once again, Stephen Maitland-Lewis, and we didn't get any calls yet for anybody who actually wanted to ask any questions, which is fine. Any comments? Right now, we're going to bring in our next actor and essentially a playwright because this is what he's doing now. Casey Groves, welcome to our stage. And I guess what I'll do is since we're no longer going to be in the hotel room, we'll just forget about having that as a background. We'll go to a little bit of background of the leaves there. There we are.
Sounds good.
Casey,
Pretend we
welcome.
have fall here.
Now you were on last week, so if anybody says, "Hey, I saw that guy before," you're going to be involved with the Insulted Belarusia piece that we're doing. That was Andre. Help me with the last name.
Kalachik?
Yeah, Kalachik. Yeah. Anyway, he is going to be involved with talking about what's going on in Belarus now with the let's say dictator or the ruler, the despot, and you're going to actually be playing the despot.
Yes.
Alexander Lukashenko, is that right?
Lukashenko.
Lukashenko.
Yeah.
Anyway, so again, this is not Lukashenko. You are actually playing a figure who is well known here in New Orleans, and you need to explain why he's known in New Orleans and what he did, because as I recall, it had to do with the yellow fever epidemic, etc.
True.
But let's first off go on a little bit. You are an actor. What again? I explained I was having my seltzer tonight since I'm not drinking anything. What are you having?
I'm having a little bourbon.
Little bourbon, making me
This is
jealous.
more, I think, more in line with the Lukashenko character, although he might be having vodka. But I don't know. Father Silos, he might enjoy it in the evening, a little nightcap.
Well, all right. So let's get down to.
I can't speak to that. That may not be true at all. That probably isn't. I don't want to be.
All right. Well, we won't offend anybody. So tell me a little bit. First off, Stephen explained. He got involved with the playmaking, etc. Because he was written a story about Ernest Simpson, and then he said maybe this will work as a play. What was it about Father Silos that drew you to do this? And again, let me see if I can show a picture of this is Father Silos here, and I think we can sort of move up. You can move a little bit the other way. Yeah,
the other way.
Casey.
Yeah, there.
Yeah. So now tell me a little bit. This is pictured from what year is that approximately?
Well, 1867 was the year he died. I believe it was somewhere close to that. He was 48 when he died.
Okay.
So he looks like he's in his 40s here. So I think it was very close to the time he died. But he died in the yellow fever epidemic, so it wasn't like he was unhealthy.
Right. Just like people who die in COVID, they're not necessarily unhealthy. Right. So we understand.
Right.
That.
You know what? It's funny when I got the idea to do a performance of this play now. Actually, when COVID was happening, when it first started, I had like 4 or 5 performances set up for the spring, and then I had to cancel them all, like around May, April. And so now that I'm doing it again, it's interesting. I was thinking of it, the fact that he's known for his healing abilities. He was sort of a savant healer. And I was thinking about just that part of things, the fact that we can use a play that has to do with healing. But I wasn't even thinking about the fact that he had died in the yellow fever epidemic here in New Orleans.
So again, you said he died in 1867. So and he was born, I guess, what you said, 40 some odd years before that. So
right,
he was born in the 1820s, early 1820s, approximately.
So yeah, he grew up in Bavaria. He went to seminary in Munich.
So was his native language German or English?
German.
So when he spoke with a German accent, you think?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, he was here for a long time. By the time, he was in his early 20s when he got here. So he was able to, adapt. And I mean, he heard so many confessions and spoke so many, preached so much that he probably lost a lot of his accent. And in the play, I do have a slight German accent that I use for him. Actually, I play 28 characters in this one-man play, and 7 of them are German priests. So I had to learn 7 different German accents. It was challenging. It's fun, you know.
Well,
But
yeah.
for Father Silos, I definitely chose an accent that was very, very light. You know, just a sort of a touch of flavor, you know.
And of course, you're noted as an Irish enthusiast.
Hmm.
So again, Irish Catholic, etc. But
Right.
what was it that drew you to doing this work? What was it that drew you to becoming Father Silos, as it were?
Well, originally, my parents had pitched this idea to me when I was living up in New York, and I was in New York for several years, and I was just living there, and I was acting in some TV and theater. I was in a theater company with a Jesuit priest who was a theater actor, did a lot of wild experimental theater in New York. But I did this one-man play about Saint Damien of Molokai. He was a Belgian priest, but he worked in Hawaii and helped people who had leprosy in Hawaii. And I performed that play in high school here when I went to De La Salle as a senior, and then later revisited that play as an adult when I was up in New York, and then eventually was invited to perform it in Hawaii and toured it throughout the Hawaiian Islands. And my wife and I ended up getting married at the settlement where he served. It was a beautiful, powerful experience. But when I moved back here in 2010, we moved down here because of the film industry, because so much, Hollywood South was starting happening. And when I moved down here, my parents were like, "Hey, listen, you're moving back to New Orleans. There's a big devotion to Father Silos here. You should do a play about his life, you know?" And in New York, nobody knew who he was, and I didn't know much about him. But when I got here, I was like, "Well, let me look into it." And so I just did a little research on him. And because I'd done like 150 performances of this play about Saint Damien, I mean, I didn't write that one, but I put it, and I had done some writing of some other plays that had religious themes to it, Catholic themes to it. I put in a proposal to the Silos Center here to see if they would sort of support me, like be patrons to me for writing of this play. So they commissioned me to write this play.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it wasn't a ton of money, but it was enough to pay for my time to work on it and rehearse it. And, it took about a year and a half of research and writing to, revisioning and to get it completed. And they also paid for the rehearsal process with the theater director who's a Jesuit priest up in New York. So I flew up to New York to work with him. We were collaborating on the writing, the priest and I. Yeah, he was like, for example, he'd be like, a priest would never say that in confession. You know what I mean? Like things like that, it's like, oh, I don't know. He's like, no. It's much more direct, much more like, listen, you need to work this out, problem, as opposed to like, oh, that's very interesting. And, like as opposed to like being a therapist, which I was kind of doing his confessionals like that. So that was an interesting process. And also the pastor, actually the director of the Silos Center here, as a Redemptorist priest, which is Father Silos' order, he was also a big consultant on the play. I mean, he doesn't have a theater background, but he has a huge devotion to Father Silos and knows his life inside and out. And when I went to, actually, when he decided, he made the decision to commit to commissioning me to write the play, he said, "Listen, we're going to do this, but his sense of humor has to come across." Because for him, he wanted people to walk away with the sense of this man being full of joy and with a great sense of humor. The book about him is called The Cheerful Ascetic. And he was known also for, his discipline and kind of, I don't know, his rigor in terms of the way he handled himself and his morality, but he was also known for being really funny and telling jokes and enjoying a good joke. So that was very important that came across.
I guess you got all the different permutations of Catholicism. I mean, you were a student at Christian Brothers. You had a Redemptorist priest who was being involved, and then you had a Jesuit coach up in New York, drama teacher, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, it seems like who else could you bring in except for maybe the Franciscans or something? I don't know.
Right.
So, what was it? What was it about Father Silos? We all know that he eventually passed, but
Right.
I wonder what was it about him that that has made him such a pivotal figure in so many people's lives, and why do people pray to him for healing? I mean, was it that a few people said, well, he passed away, but let's pray through him or something, and it became something where somebody got well. I mean, were there documented cases where he,
Yes.
so is he on his way to sainthood
Yeah.
or what?
He's beatified. So
Beatified. Okay, good.
Yeah, he's Blessed Father Silos. So there was a, proven, or however you decide that. I mean, there's like a ton. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of people telling me of healings that have happened in their lives. I'm like, have you talked with the commission about that, or talked with the Silos Center about this? And, oh yes, we have. So a lot of the cases for miracles, a lot of them don't get put forward. Like they kind of like choose very succinctly which miracle they're going to put forward, just to make sure there's no discrepancies, and that oh well, he died from something else and later, so then that healing of the cancer didn't count. So those kinds of things. They want to make sure that they put forth the strongest stories. But no, the reason why there's such a strong devotion to him, I mean, there's a few things. One of them is that he was very well known for praying over people, and through God's intercession, people would become healed of their illnesses and injuries, sometimes right there on the spot. And another thing is that he was also known for his work in the confessional. Like people, nowadays I think people think of, oh God, I gotta go to confession. It's not a thing that people kind of look forward to.
Right.
But he literally would have a 2-hour wait outside his confessional, because people felt at ease with him. Like there was a woman, a nun, in this line is in the play. She's like, I felt like he could look right into my heart when I went to confession with him. So there was something. He had a lot of compassion, and he could really see people.
So, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, I'm just trying to get an idea, because here in New Orleans we seem to have our own devotion to a number of the I would say leaders of the Catholic Church. I mean, I know that Father Silos did not have some of the other aspects that people talk about with some of the other religious figures. In terms of like the
the stigmata
and stuff like that. But that
I mean, like, well, there was a story that's in the play as well where he was in the seminary. He was like he was in charge of the seminary up in the hills in Maryland. It's a town called Cumberland. And one of the students came in while he was in prayer in the chapel, and he was levitating. So there are some stories of some wild things that happened, those kind of saintly things in his lifetime. Also, this was a really wild thing. There was a man named Simon Sell in Pennsylvania who had fallen from a scaffold, and the doctor was thinking that he wasn't going to live through the day, But Father Silos came and prayed over him, and the guy, survived. He was able to live, and was able to provide a home for his family because he had like 7, 8 kids. So the interesting thing about that was that I was doing a performance of the play in that area near Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh actually.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman came up to me after the play, and she said that she was Simon Sell's granddaughter or great granddaughter, and that she would not even be here if Father Silos had not healed her great grandfather.
I like that. All right. Well, there's a lot of stuff about that going on. Again, this is a picture of you, again as Father Silos, and again, as I recall, the name of this is Silos, Doctor of Souls, right?
That's right.
So those of you who are interested, this is going to be on tomorrow night on Eventbrite, correct? So we need to let people know exactly where do they go to see this on Eventbrite. I mean, do they look up Eventbrite and say Silos, Doctor of Souls?
Yeah, that's all you have to do. If you go to Google and you put in Eventbrite and then you write the words Silos, Doctor of Souls, it'll come up.
Okay. So again, that's for tomorrow night. And what time does it start at?
It starts. Oh, I'm sorry. It's for Sunday.
Sunday night. I'm sorry. The 18th.
Yeah, that's right. Sunday the 18th. It starts at 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
At 6:30, there's going to be like a kind of a pre-gathering.
Now there's some. Is there some kind of a feast or something that goes with this, or no? No, because some of the people have a dinner or something that's associated with things like this.
Right. Some people that have pre-ordered a dinner. There's like an Oktoberfest dinner, like could be from Bavaria. So they have like sauerkraut and
I got you.
Some schnitzel, but and some German beer. But anybody is welcome to come to that little pre-gathering. It's like at 6:30. The performance is actually a fundraiser for the First Unitarian Universalist Church on Claiborne and Jefferson.
Sure.
So it's a fundraiser for that church, and so I'm not. It's like a totally volunteer performance. But
right. Are you associated with them in any way? Because they've actually done some plays there. If you remember, the NOLA Project had one of their plays that was done there not that long ago, and a lot of sword fighting and stuff, as I recall.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm on the board of the church. Yeah, so I enjoy going there. It's a good place for Rachel and I, because my wife Rachel is Jewish, and we sometimes go to virtual synagogue together at Turo, and then we have this. Unitarian Universalism is a very like interfaith sort of religion, so it's kind of a good place for both of us to be.
Well, I know of the church well. I know of some of their outreach, and I've actually known some of the members. So like you, I didn't know that you were actually a member of the church, but I do know of the good work that they do and have done, and I would assume that they're very dedicated. I know that they have a lot of social activism within the church. So anybody who's interested should look them up if they're interested in getting associated with the church. And again, I guess all we can do is invite people to look it up online, like you said, on Eventbrite.com. That's EVENTBRITE, not GHT, right? TE,
That's right?
Eventbrite.com. And those of you who are interested, it's again pretty simple. All you got to do is look up Silos, Doctor of Souls. Again, I want to thank Casey Groves for being here tonight with us. And then earlier, of course, we had Stephen Maitland-Lewis. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say one cool element that I'm really excited about is that I have a good friend of mine. Actually, she works with the Unitarian Universalist Church a lot. She does a lot of stuff with them, volunteering and such. She's going to be doing the Zoom backgrounds for the whole play. So like when I'm at sea on the way from Germany to America, there's going to be a boat, all the kind of like little locational things, being out in the hills of Cumberland, there's like this shack that he sees this guy that he helped out. All these kinds of things will be in the Zoom backgrounds, which I'm excited about.
So is it being done live, or you've recorded it?
It's a live Zoom performance. So I can like look at people's faces, and
right. Okay.
You won't know if I'm looking at you, but I'll be like connecting with people on the Zoom.
Hopefully you will be, and I appreciate it very much. Again, thank you for being with us here tonight, Casey Groves. And
Thank you.
earlier tonight, again, as we mentioned, we had Stephen Maitland-Lewis talking about his play coming up on Monday. You'll be able to see it. That, of course, being Simpson's Pride. And again, I want to thank everybody for being here. It's a work that we do here to try to keep you all connected with theater. My name is Alan Smason. This is NOLA Theater Talk. Again, hopefully you caught this tonight on the NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, or perhaps the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, or perhaps on my own Music Lovers 169 YouTube channel. Again, I want to thank you all for being here tonight, and I will see you at the theater. We'll see you at Simpson's Pride on Monday night.